After a 2-week hiatus, we are back on the death lineup. Brian, for whatever reason, we just couldn't find a time to record. And then all last week, I was kind of busy with wrestling stuff. So finally, we are in the time slot that is usually Thompson to Clark, but Brad is on vacation. So we're going to do Thompson to Clark on Wednesday instead at this same time. But it is time for the death lineup. You see maybe an unfamiliar face there. And that is the face of Michael Miles, who is a Lakers fan and fellow podcaster. Now, before you boo your screen, we are going to talk about Warriors-Lakers. And look, we got to take our lumps, right? The Lakers have pretty much owned the Warriors this year. So we're going to go over that game. And then after we're done, Michael's going to get on with his night. And Brian and I will talk more Warrior stuff. But Michael, what's up?
How's it going, y'all?
So let's talk about the Lakers here for a second, because I think what I was hoping yesterday, Steph's back, Andre's back, the Warriors are going to have a little bit of this like great momentum. And somebody before the game had reminded me, it might have been Ben Cruz, or it might have been actually Brian in a text message going like, oh, by the way, they spent last night in LA. And I was like, oh, great. And then it's a morning game. And, early afternoon game. And then I was like, you know what? I have a feeling the Warriors are going to lose this game. And they did, even though the Lakers were without LeBron. The Lakers are just a bad matchup for the Warriors. But my question to you, Michael, is since all of the trades, to me, the Lakers look like a much more fundamentally sound basketball team, offensively and defensively. Now, some of that is, I think the guys sort of understand their roles, but you look at yesterday, Vanderbilt, Beasley, their plus minuses were great. Austin Reeves was showing off on national television. What is your take on this current version of the Lakers post-trade deadline?
This is the most fun I've had watching the Lakers since their championship run. We've seen moves over the last years that didn't make a whole lot of sense to everyone else, but I deep down inside was trying to have enough copium to get me through the season. And somehow we landed these players, and watching them fill in these roles perfectly is so fun to watch. And with Anthony Davis, leading this ship right now with LeBron out, I couldn't ask for a better performance yesterday. There's still a couple of things that, I'm worried as we move into the postseason. Can we keep this up with LeBron on the court? Because for whatever reason, when LeBron has these role players out there and he, drives and kicks, they can't hit those open threes. We've seen that over the years with his previous team. So I just hope the same mentality they have right now sticks for if and when we make the playoffs.
Bri, that's something that's really interesting that Michael said. And we've seen LeBron in every iteration since, the Heat teams and how he plays. And these later years, you can go to the Cavs teams, who the Warriors played them 4 straight times in the finals. He turns a lot of people into corner 3 shooters. And like Michael says, you would think that you get those open threes and you should be able to hit them. But sometimes if you're not in the flow of the offense and it becomes really LeBron dominant, like you can kind of just be like, oh, like I'm just going to sit in the corner and I don't feel like I'm a very good basketball player here. And then you end up kind of getting cold. Do you see the same thing as Michael, where you put LeBron back in, he dominates the ball, and maybe all of a sudden these guys who are playing really good basketball kind of just go into being corner 3 shooters and maybe not successful ones?
I mean, I don't think so. Like, you look at, I don't know, that 2020 roster, only a couple guys it felt like were kind of pushed into that, being like, wasn't like Caruso offensively kind of had to become more of a corner 3 guy, and then obviously Danny Green. But I mean, you look at like their current roster, and like Vanderbilt, I know he's supposed to be like, he can't shoot threes, but for some reason the corner, he's like, okay. I don't know if you've seen, like, since he's been on the Lakers, that he's been trying the corner 3 that much, but he's, not really a 3-point shooter. Anthony Davis, you want to let him cook inside. And then Beasley's obviously just like gonna shoot all over. But I think this specific roster, although I like a lot of it on paper, it might not be as typical of the, successful LeBron rosters, where it's just like guys who are like literally just go camp there. Even though that might not have been your game prior, it's your game now, and it makes like you should be able to sit on the corner and and just shoot wide open corner threes. But I just feel like this specific roster has different skill sets that don't totally isn't necessarily made for that style, but it could work and it could be even better. I don't know, maybe not better than LeBron championship runs, but I really like who Vanderbilt is as a player.
So you like the fit, even if it's not the fit that everybody thinks is successful for a LeBron team necessarily.
And who's to say that LeBron can do LeBron things in the play? Like he might need more help, more to lean on, and that makes sense. He's in his older age.
Well, don't forget, we have D'Angelo Russell, who we didn't get to see yesterday. So he will be there eventually. With LeBron, it's more so the guys around him can get this nervous energy. I've seen it. I've watched almost every game the last 2 years, and it doesn't matter who's on the court with him. There's this nervous cloud around them for when he kicks them the ball. You just see them hesitate just a fraction of a second, and that's enough time for a defense to make an adjustment or for that play to then fail. It's something that's just happened time and time again, and it's very frustrating to watch. With this team being so new to LeBron, I mean, we have 20 games left. I don't know how gelled they're going to be coming into the playoffs, and that's my most worrisome feeling is, are we going to be gelled together? Are we going to have this team chemistry going in? I don't know. Everyone's kind of raising us up on their rankings, and it's kind of freaking me out a little bit that the expectations are getting too high.
So you mentioned the season. I think the Warriors have 17 games left, and Brian and I will talk about the split because the split is not favorable to the road home for the rest of the season for the Warriors. But realistically, with LeBron out for probably 3 weeks, how can that team kind of gel? And really what the team is until LeBron comes back, they have to perform like a contender with him being out. And then when he comes back, again, he's very ball dominant. So you have to sort of adjust to that. So that's going to be an interesting thing for the Lakers. But first and foremost, you got to get to the playoffs. Are you confident that they get in that 9-10 slot to at least make the play-in? One
game at a time. And I think that's the right mentality to have, especially after the tough Grizzly game. AD's got to continue to carry, but every time Davis falls on the ground, my heart sinks. I think our season's over, and that's been a trend these last 4 years. So as long as he's healthy, I mean, this team can do so much. Seeing him dominate in length yesterday just shows the potential that's there. It's just, can he stay healthy? That's the main key.
So, Bri, when it comes to Lakers and the Warriors, I mean, I think the dream scenario for the play-in would be a Warriors-Lakers play-in. For me, I hope that the Warriors do not. I hope that they sort of play where they are and they stay in that 6th spot. But why do the Warriors match up so poorly against this Laker team? Because we saw that last night. They were missing one guy who was Andrew Wiggins, but the Lakers are missing LeBron, and they just seem to counter everything that the Warriors did. They had an answer and then a little bit of a run.
I think there's a couple things there. I think there is a little bit of Steph rust. I think he was 8 for 20. Mm-hmm. When you watch that Suns game on national TV of when he first came back the first time around this year, it was awful. I wasn't.
Is that
totally
the game that Klay got kicked out of? Or no, that was after.
No,
that was out. Yeah, that game was after.
There's that aspect. There's also, I know this is minute, but Jared Vanderbilt completely renders Jonathan Kuminga useless. They do essentially the same thing, and Vanderbilt's just better at it. And he just completely makes Kuminga useless. Anthony Davis playing at this level, I think is obviously been really good for the Lakers, and it's hard for the Warriors too. Draymond's supposed to be a really good Anthony Davis defender. But I do think that there is, what was it last year? What was the series split? 3-1 maybe? Warriors won 3 to Lakers 1. I think there is what am I trying to say here? I think Wiggins definitely would have helped in that situation. Mm-hmm. But no, this is a different Lakers squad than what we've seen in the past. The beginning of the season, the first game, it was clear we were the better team. Now you get a couple pieces in D'Angelo Russell, Vanderbilt. You get rid of Russ. It's the most important thing. It's a completely different roster. And I do think that fully healthy, I would probably lean the Warriors just because of what they've done to this team in the past, except for this season. But yeah, I think
you would lean Warriors right now.
I would lean Warriors right. with everyone healthy, assuming everyone gets back healthy, both teams, LeBron's back for the Lakers, and then Wiggins and Steph's got a couple games under his belt. I would probably lean Warriors.
Okay,
I still need to. Yeah.
Sorry. Let me ask you this question then, really quick, for the both of you. The paint presence for the Warriors has looked, I don't want to say effortless, but they're lacking something down there. In the last couple of games, Mason Plumlee had 12 points, 20 rebounds. Naz Reid, 30 points, 9 rebounds. Anthony Davis, 39 points, 8 rebounds. That's a problem for them. They can't gather boards. How do they fix that?
They punt those, like, for now. Anthony Davis is a different level of player than the other two guys that you mentioned, though. Naz Reid would look really good in the Warriors uniform.
Guy's a superstar again.
But for someone like Plumlee, what the Warriors do to a Plumlee is they go ahead, right? Just do you. That means, a little bit less for Kawhi, maybe a little bit less for PG if you do you. Naz Reid he just got really hot against them the last 2 games. So some of that is I'm sure a little bit lucky. But for Davis, he's always going to be a problem because he has an inside-outside game, and defensively, he makes up for all of the Laker mistakes. He's a cleaner in that instance. So for the Warriors to beat a healthy Lakers team with a healthy Anthony Davis, it's going to be other things that they do offensively, and then they're not going to stop him. But what they're going to do is they hope, and we saw this opening night. And LeBron was very angry that game. I think that was the game where he's like, we don't have enough shooting. And it was like game 1, right? But what did Davis do is Davis wasn't aggressive. And when Draymond guards Davis, which he didn't do a lot of yesterday, I don't think, Draymond, there's a level of Draymond bodies Davis a lot. And Davis, I'm not saying he doesn't like the contact, but Draymond just does it in a different way, right? Draymond is smaller. He's more stout. He's like a fire hydrant. So when Draymond bodies Davis, it's just all in his legs. And so what he does is he effectively turns Davis into a mid-range shooter. And Davis gets very comfortable with that shot against the Warriors. That shot is great for the Warriors because they're not fouling him on that shot. So if he makes the 2, he makes the 2. He's not going to get an and 1. He's not getting the free throw line. And B, they want him to be comfortable shooting long 2s because, as we know in today's NBA, the long 2 isn't an effective shot. So those are I think if in a matchup, all things being equal, the Warriors wouldn't solve Davis, but they would have a little bit more of a fight. I think Draymond's hand being messed up and just overall the miles on this dude's legs this year has been the thing to me that is like my biggest worry is in game 75, the tread just goes off of the tires and Draymond gets hurt in some way because he has been playing a lot of center and they avoided that previous to last year. It was like, no, we're only going to play him in these like crunch time spots when we need him because offensively they were just so good that they were mostly winning these games. And now you need him a lot more to play those minutes. So that is my worry. But back to your point, that is how they would effectively deal with it. And they just were not doing that yesterday. It was like, you get a little bit of Looney here, and Looney's just going to stand and put his hands up. That's what he does. He doesn't even jump. He stands, put his hands up. But Brian, did you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I just think that Anthony Davis is definitely like a particular example. Like when you use the Naz Reid and Plumlee things, I think you're right. Like what have the Warriors just done so well in the whole championship run? It's okay, we're going to let you cook and we'll just go small and run you off the court offensively. Yeah. With Davis, you can't do it. It's because he could play small ball 5. And I think like what you said, I didn't really have a totally like a great answer on how I thought the Warriors would effectively stop him. But, I thought you provided a good one there. And I think the Warriors do have bodies to throw at LeBron this time around. Like I think Wiggins is a good defensive matchup for LeBron. I mean, LeBron's going to do his thing, right? But they have guys like Kuminga. I'm just so high on Kuminga defensively, but I think Kuminga last year as a rookie did a really good job against LeBron. And then we'll see what old Iguodala does in his prime days of guarding LeBron. But
and this is actually kind of a question for Michael. Just in I'm not watching all the Laker games, obviously, but what I see from LeBron more so this year than just about ever is his willingness to settle for the outside shot. And some of that has to be just because of the miles, just because of like, this dude is, plays so hard. But in a 1-game playoff, I think he attacks, and he's played, no one has played the Warriors more in big games than he has. And I think he would just go right into attack mode. So if I was fearful of like one particular thing playing the Lakers, like say in a 1-gamer, it would be that LeBron's like, okay, it's win or go home, and I'm going to just attack the basket like crazy, because that would be the way for him to just get things going, get Warriors in foul trouble, all these crazy things that could happen. So in a 1-gamer, I'm much more fearful of LeBron than say if they had a 7-game series, because I think then he kind of has to, make sure that he's not that he's rested, and that he's, not killing himself, because he knows he will think the long game, I think, in a 7-gamer. But yeah, I think in a 1-gamer, they're a dangerous team.
Definitely. But my last point to that is, I think the Warriors would also not necessarily rely, but try to expose the lack of playoff experience outside of LeBron and AD. Vanderbilt 1 playoff series with Minnesota, D'Lo 2 with Brooklyn and Minnesota. Malik, I know was he on the Denver Nuggets before, so maybe he had more. He was on a different team before the Timberwolves. I forgot what team it was, but again, like those are big minute guys, and maybe try to force Vanderbilt to shoot that corner 3. And although he might be, again, I don't know the percentages, but I know if he can hit one, it might be the corner 3. But in the playoffs, it's just a different level of noise. We saw it with Tatum, how Tatum was just not looking like one of the best 7 players in the league.
Going back
the
to
lights are bright.
Going back to what I said about them kind of trying to, okay, let this guy cook and let's guard the other pieces. Now, it's really hard to do that, like, because that's why you want superstars, because Lakers have LeBron and Davis, so you can't really do that, because there's 2 guys there who are gonna get their stuff. I think the Warriors would very much try to force D'Angelo Russell into a scorer and a shooter, because he does a lot of things inefficiently. And so, like Brian said, some of these other guys who, I think they would try and bottle those guys up, and maybe even employ a little bit of Russ Westbrook defense, where you just leave this dude open and dare him to shoot. Because if you can guard a little bit of 5-on-4, that does make up for some of the space that, Anthony Davis it's all vertical space. But if you kind of go 5-on-4 against them, and maybe it's like, oh, let's let Russell make some decisions here. Is he going to make the decision to give it to the big man, or is he going to say, oh, I'm sort of open, I'm never open, I'm just going to go for mine? That's the kind of thing that you do in the playoffs, where you're like, oh, like this is also a mental piece of this as much as it is, a game plan or a physical piece of it. So that's what will be interesting. And back to Michael's point, they need the minutes together to sort of figure that kind of thing out.
I'm a little offended you compared Westbrook's corner 3 to Russell's, just to start off. Totally different type of shooter in that corner.
Hey, we went through the D-Russ experience. So Brian even bought a jersey. So that's how much Brian liked. But I was just dying. I was just like, this guy is hurting my feelings, because he's just not the Warriors kind of player.
And now that was without Steph, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So gravity's different there. You got LeBron and AD absorbing some of that gravity off of Russell if he is in the corner. I just imagine the schemes are so different with those type of players on the court. So I don't want to say apples to oranges, but we don't know. We don't know what Russell's really going to bring to this team. We have such a small sample size of what he's done with us. We only a couple games, but from what we saw, it looked good, especially with Davis and LeBron on the court. As far as playoff experience goes, I think Schroeder is probably our 3rd most experienced player on the roster, and that's with Atlanta and the Thunder. A couple playoff series there. So that does worry me, absolutely. But we might get to see guys like Austin Reeves and the Vanderbilts kind of show what they can do in the playoffs. And for me, it's about the future. If we can go deep in the playoffs this year, great. Is it expected? Absolutely not. My expectations for this team at the beginning of the year were so low, and somehow we're climbing up the ladder. And now my sights are definitely on next year. And these 3 weeks of rest that LeBron recovery from injury could be a blessing if this team climbs in the rankings and heaven forbid gets the 6th spot. That's the dream right now. If we get that 6th spot and we play Sacramento in the first round, awesome. Can't wait to see it. I hope LeBron makes it back for it. If we lose that series, I'm okay with that because expectations are, fairly low for what we started with and what we have now. And then we roll into the next season with a pretty stacked lineup that I think can get 50 plus wins. And I think other teams would be scared of.
What is the future though? LeBron has 2 years left after this. Is that what it is?
Yep.
And I think you guys did not mortgage all of the future. You still kept at least one of those picks. So, but what is the future for the Lakers? The future to me seems like it's like we got 2 more years to win a chip, and we'll see what happens.
I would love to run this team back. I mean, from what we've seen so far with Davis and LeBron with this squad, it looked great. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's not wanting to play the Warriors or the Lakers in the first round. Again, it is a very small sample size, so we don't know what an 82-game season will really look like with this squad. But maybe I'm on hopium right now that I think we can make it through with this team. I don't know, but from what I've seen in the last 2 years was so ugly. I would have taken anything else. And now that we got this squad together who seem to like each other and are playing for each other rather for themselves, that goes so far.
And that's why this play-in game is kind of important for the NBA, because all of these teams go, the Lakers can talk themselves into, we just got to get to 10 and we have a shot. Similarly with the Warriors, right? Oh, this pedigree, LeBron's got the pedigree of being in the championship series so many times, and same with the Warriors. And so you talk yourself into it. And in other years, if you had to get to 8 to make the playoffs, it might be like, shut down LeBron, got to shut down Davis. Oh, Curry, yeah, got to shut him down. Draymond got to shut him down. But now with this playing game, it seems like more teams believe that they have a shot. Brian, do you have anything else to add to this before we let Michael go?
Yeah, I just think that, I really like the Lakers trade. And I think as I continue to kind of talk myself through it here, I truthfully, out of the current teams in the play-in, I think the Lakers are the team I would least like to see. I think that the whole LeBron Warriors thing, it would be nice to send him out and kick him out of the play-in if that's what it comes down to. But I don't think I'd want to see the Lakers in the play-in. Out of the potential first round opponents, you talk Nuggets, Kings, Suns, Grizzlies. The Lakers are probably up there in teams I wouldn't want to see either. I'm confident that in a 7-gamer, the Warriors would win, but I just know LeBron's just different in the playoffs, right? And so I just know that, it would make, he would try to extend that series as long as possible. It makes it tough, makes you tired for the next series. The best case scenario is the Lakers make the playoffs, but they see the Nuggets in round 1 for the Warriors, because they could just, beat down the Nuggets a little bit and make them a little tired for the next round. But no, I'm with you, Michael. I like this team. I do like this team. I feel like, the mesh playing together is going to be important. Although I say that, and last year's Warriors team didn't even really play together until the playoffs. But I mean, the sample size we've gotten is 1 game and a half, right? It's the Pelicans game and it's half of the Warriors game until LeBron barely plays and D'Lo goes down. So, I think that there is, especially for a player like LeBron, who is your focal point on that entire team, you need to be able to play with LeBron, and that's the guy who's missing for 3 weeks. I think that's just gonna show itself. But at the same time, teams will not necessarily know how to scheme against them in the playoffs for the first couple games or for the first quarter and a half if it's the play-in, because you haven't seen that team together. And there's things that can happen that I'm just trying to run through my head right now. I would probably lean towards Lakers, it's jumping over Utah at least and getting in that 10 spot.
So you see the Lakers winning 1 playoff series?
Depends on who their matchup is. Mm-hmm. If it's the Nuggets, no. I just think that they'll just kind of, I don't know, take it to 6, maybe take it to 5 or 6. And it's just good for the Warriors, because longer series makes it, tougher to get on to the next series. Just makes the players tired. Celtics went to 3 game 7s last year and it worked out for the Warriors.
Okay, so Michael, why don't you let us know where people can listen to you and your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run the Hooligans Pitch. We are the hooliganspitch.com. We are a homebrewed fantasy soccer league, which we do Champions League, Premier League, the World Cup, men's and women's. We're starting to dabble into MLS. We are going the opposite way of automated fantasy leagues. We are doing everything by hand. We do everything on Google Excel. We have 1,000 formulas that run on these sheets. It's a great little hobby of ours that we're building up. We have people all over the world not only listening, but participating in our pools. It's a really good time. We have a great Discord, great community. It's been a lot of fun. This has been ongoing for roughly 25 years, started in Ottawa, Canada, is now hosted in Columbia, Missouri, and Sacramento, California. Give us a shout. We're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, the Hooligans Pitch.
And are you subscribing to Apple TV to watch all this MLS that's on there?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Nice.
MLS, they just released a whole new jersey line. Leagues are really starting to prep for 2026 when the World Cup comes to America. You have all the divisions right now trying to get as much, as many people interested. That's why you're seeing big shows like Welcome to Wrexham, Ted Lasso, All or Nothing coming out. They're trying to get this big popularity. So, we're kind of in this little boom right now of soccer. So it's been a good time.
Let me know if you have any Quakes people who may want to podcast.
Definitely. I'll let you know.
We're always looking to add podcasts to this network, and
right on.
I would be interested. All right, thanks to Michael Miles for joining us to talk some Lakers, and check out the Hooligans Pitch. And if you're into the soccer thing, the fantasy league and doing it by hand sounds terrifying to me, but it also sounds kind of fun.
It's not that bad. It's pretty fun. I'll show it to you sometime. I'll show it to you.
All right, thanks, Michael.
All right, thanks, fellas. Have a good night.
Peace.
All right, so that was fun. We've been meaning to do that for a little while. Glad that Michael could come on. Michael, I would have first met Michael when he was like a teenager, like maybe a high schooler, and then I maybe even earlier than that. And he was a swimmer, and for some reason, I don't know, maybe there was like a picture of him posted in a Speedo, but for like 10 years he was just Speedo Boy. And that's just what I called him. And then that just became a little bit of a nickname. But now he's a grown up. He's a grown man. He's got his own podcast. He's working for sport. He's working as an SID in Missouri. So that's kind of cool. Sometimes you don't even realize how old people get just right before your eyes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the return of Steph and also the return of Andre, because I think it's important that we talk about Andre as a possible help, because that's what this was for, right? We talked about this in the beginning, and we were just like, maybe he just doesn't play until after the All-Star break, and we just let him get, let him stay healthy and work out and just stay strong. But now this is sort of the time for which you would have signed him and where you expect him to play. He almost seems like a guy without a position, though, the way that they play basketball right now, because he's playing in a lineup where a lot of times he's like the 4. Like there was moments where he's a guarding AD on the block yesterday.
Yeah. I've made some quick judgments that I'm not too proud of.
You did.
I think I was.
You judged AD?
Like
you judged Iguodala?
I'm not sure if I said it on this podcast or not, but I definitely thought it. Where I was super hyped that he was coming back because I knew he'd be a positive for some of the young guys, and then when he came back, I think he was a plus. Like if you grab all those minutes from the Spurs game and like Chicago game,
like 2 or 3 games, right?
Yeah, and I bet the minutes were a plus, but he goes down immediately, and I'm like, man, was this really a Haslam thing more than just? Because you look at Haslam, and he's just more of like
you've made the Haslam.
Okay, so I did say that,
but
here.
I think it was when we were playing 2K more so than in a podcast.
Oh, than in a podcast format. But yeah, I was thinking that maybe I always Haslam's definitely just like the guy on the bench who's just like a leader, right? But for Iguodala, I was like, no, guys, it's different. He's gonna actually play. Then he gets hurt again, and I was like, oh, is he really Haslam? But now he's back, and now I'm gonna make a quick judgment again that he's gonna be really important. And and not just off the floor. Like, I know he's not going to get like these crazy amounts of minutes, but he is just a veteran who knows how to.
He played 14 minutes yesterday. That was more than Kuminga.
That feels too much off the bat though. But he's just gonna put things together. He knows this offense so well. He's just gonna make sure everyone's in the right spot. That's so valuable to have, and
Yes.
it's good to
That's
see.
where I find him to be such a value is in a lot of these younger guys, Kuminga and Jordan Poole, like he can kind of help right the ship a little bit to where, and Draymond has mentioned this, and you've mentioned this from the get-go, Draymond, his actual opportunities to coach these guys really hard sometimes, it doesn't work as well when you punch one of your teammates in the face, and then all of a sudden now you have to like play like it definitely looks like he's doing a little bit more of like nice guy Draymond. And so maybe Andre can be a little bit one of the demonstrative, taking JK aside and being like, come on, dude, like you got to do X, Y, and Z.
I mean, he got ejected. Do you remember the Chicago game because he was mad at Jordan? I'm 100% sure that's the reason.
Oh, because when he threw the ball,
in the stands, I think he was pissed off that Jordan made a bad defensive read or cost them a bucket or something.
Yeah, so that will be good, and I just hope he can play. He did not want to shoot yesterday until he had to, and they treated him kind of like how they treated JK. The Lakers just sagged off of both of those guys when they got the basketball pretty hard, and it screws up the geography and the spacing for the Warriors. And it made me wonder, Anthony Lamb played 27 minutes yesterday. He was Steve Kerr's answer to Kuminga maybe not being as effective as he wanted him to be because they just left him wide open. And Anthony Lamb played well. I think he had the best plus minus on the team. And the problem is that they just played him in his 50th game, so he's not available to play unless they sign him as the 15th guy. So if Anthony Lamb is your Kuminga replacement, then where's Kerr going to go for the next Kuminga replacement? Is it going to be Patrick Baldwin? Is Patrick Baldwin going to get an opportunity to play some of those Anthony Lamb minutes? That is what I want to see, if Kerr will actually do it.
I hope so. I don't want Anthony Lamb to have any success.
Well, I mean, but he can't, right? Like he unfortunately they've played.
I know, but it just seems like all the stars are aligning for him to be the 15th guy, right? For them to sign him. But I wonder if they're doing
now. Like Kerr loves him.
It makes too much sense, but I wonder if they're doing more before they do actually sign him to the 15th spot. I wonder if they're doing more background on some of the off the court stuff. Like I feel like my morals just can't get past it, and I know.
I mean, do we really know? Do we really know what the story was, or we only know sort of the scuttlebutt about that situation?
I think we know. I mean, I think there's a good amount. Like I've read multiple articles on it. I don't know if the Warriors needed to, but that the Warriors said they did their due diligence, but they didn't reach out to the girl.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't want to speak on something I don't know too much about, but it's, yeah, Anthony Lamb's weird.
Okay, but from a basketball standpoint, there are moments where he definitely helps. There are also moments when he doesn't, and it's very visible. And then then you take him out and you put in somebody else for that moment. But who's going to be Kerr's trusted guy? I think is going to be a question here. Is it going to be Moody? It could be Moody, right? It could mean Moody gets a few more of Lamb's minutes, because it's not like Lamb is that much taller than Moses Moody. He's just a little bit more physical. Patrick Baldwin is a lot taller than Anthony Lamb, but he's not as physical. He hasn't really shown a willingness to kind of get down and get dirty. He just sits out in the 3-point line and they just pass the ball and he chucks it up. But I think that's gonna be something we need to look at. Now, they could fix all of this, or at least most of it, with Wiggins coming back, and that's the other wild cards we just don't know. Like, there's been no information about this situation with Andrew Wiggins, and I'm sure it is because they know that he likes to be a really private guy. But
and they're probably how the last incident with him came out too, about the whole vaccine thing. I'm sure he wasn't too happy about that, so maybe they're just trying to do this.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Is they probably know that about him, and that he's going to be really frustrated if this information gets out, and maybe it would hurt him coming back. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's just such a weird thing. Like, you would have thought by now, personal matters, family matters. Usually that means like 1 or 2 games. And so far, It's meant like, what is
like
it, like
3
8?
weeks.
Yeah, it's like 8 games or something like
It's
that.
like before the All-Star break. It was the game before the All-Star break, I believe.
Do you think we can rely on him, or you think this is going to be something that extends out?
See, like you can't even like speculate or guess when this guy's going to come back because we have absolutely no clue. We have no clue what's going on with his personal life. So obviously, like, yeah, I almost forgot the guy was on the dang team.
I know.
But he just brings. If there's no Wiggins, there's no finals. There's no chance.
100%. 100%. And I don't know. I mean, how do we? You can't even really think that way because this is kind of unprecedented, right? Now, other teams are going through similar scenarios. Ja Morant and whatever's going on with him, there is an uncertainty there with the Grizzlies. Like, they don't know how long he's going to be out. If he's out like 8 games like Wiggins, that's probably pretty meaningful for their team. Other teams have lots of injuries. Like, when's the last time Cat played?
Right, Cat and Zion. I have no clue when they're coming back.
And Cat was just like, I think I forgot. I think it was Russillo said, like, when you do a search for his injury, like the number one term that comes up is like mysterious or something like that. Like that's how funky his injury is. No one really knows what's going on with that. So yeah, there's a lot. You know, the Warriors aren't the only team who's got issues. You know, there are other teams that have issues, but there are other teams who look to be like running away with stuff. And one of those teams is the Phoenix Suns, who the Warriors will be playing shortly. But it's like teams like that where you're like, okay, they know who they are. We know who they are now, and they're going to be really hard to beat. But then there are teams like Dallas where you're like, what is Dallas with Kyrie? Like, why are they struggling so hard? So the West is just so upside down right now. What is your take on who like the really good teams are and who kind of the pretender teams are?
I think there's an argument to be made that on both sides of the conference, there's no like super elite teams that you can just say, yeah, they're going to win the championship. So I think that is an exciting thing about this year's playoffs. I mean, you think Boston Celtics, right? And they just lose to the Knicks 2 games in a row, and the Knicks looked legitimately better than them. So it's just, I don't know. For the West specifically, though, like you say, like, oh yeah, the Phoenix Suns are going on a run. They only beat the Mavericks by like 1 or 2 or whatever, and you say like, oh, the Mavericks with Kyrie, they can't seem to get it done, and that's fair. That's what's happening. But they are only losing by like 1 or 2 every single game, which is weird and funny because Luka and Kyrie are supposed to be these 2 great closers who can look at the end of the game when you need it. It just hasn't been happening. But yeah, I think this is another year where it's like kind of open. Like I personally was like, right when the Suns got KD, I was like, okay, yeah, there it is. There's your West Finals. That's who's going to go to the finals. But I mean, you look at like the Suns roster and what has helped the Suns beat the Warriors in the regular season these past 3 years was also like the depth they had. They had like really good bench pieces that would play their style of basketball perfectly. And I feel like this year they don't have that as much. So
yeah,
the
Steph stopper is gone. They had to trade him to get KD.
Exactly. Mikal Bridges. Oh man, Warriors should be ecstatic that the guy's no longer. They don't have to see him 4 times a year. But yeah, there's just so much opportunity. I mean, we'll see with the Nuggets. Like, I'm a believer. I don't know if I'm a believer in them just because of defensively how your best 3 players are, not good defenders. I don't know how far that's going to take you, but yeah, I think this West is open, and the Warriors totally have a chance to get it done.
Do you think the Kings hold off the Suns? They're currently 2 games ahead of the Suns.
I think that I think Memphis will fall. And I think the Suns could grab the 2 seed and the Kings would stay in the 3 seed. That would be my prediction. But if you told me the Kings got the 2 seed, I wouldn't be too surprised. It's been so like they're not totally frauds. And I know if there's Kings fans, they're waiting for anyone to say anything bad about them to then pounce. But you look at what the 26th or 28th defense in the league, the best offense of like all time. I just think playoffs, there is an argument that our friend Marshall told me where the Kings like defensive rating in the 4th quarter is like actually pretty good. So I guess that could like be of worry because you think that bad defensive team, they're not going to get it done in the playoffs, but if they bog down in the 4th quarter and lock you out, then I guess that could work hypothetically, but I'm not a believer in the Kings past the first round. I just want them to give some teams some trouble, and then
They're
just get
they're
bounced.
the barbecue chicken team for me. They're the team that
teams want.
when it comes down to it, they don't have the playoff reps, and
They don't have the
when you
guys.
slow down and you play the slow down game, and it's all about getting hard twos, I think they're going to struggle. I actually, that it's such a fun team, so it's really good for the NBA that this team is playing so well because you kind of root for them. They're the underdog. They're plucky. It's all about the stupid beam, and so I think it's great. But I do think they're going to be the team to fall. I would not be surprised if they lost their first round series because look at the teams. Even if they get up to number 2, maybe it's Minnesota. I think they could probably beat Minnesota.
I don't even think so. I think their best chance is against Dallas, and I still think Dallas beats them.
Clippers,
Minnesota has
Warriors.
Yeah.
Those are tough veteran teams with championship players that the Sacramento would have to beat.
Yeah, I know. It's just they don't have the best guy in like any series they're about to play.
I just say
except for
Minnesota
maybe
because
But Minnesota's got them 2-1 this year, and I think they might end up going 3-1 against them. I know it's regular season, but they're still missing Cat. What happens when that guy comes back? And now he's the best player in the series technically. But yeah, that probably is their best matchup on paper. I just have this unnecessary unwavering confidence that the Minnesota Timberwolves can beat them. I don't know why.
So the previous the week that we were away, maybe we should have been away because they played so well when we were away. They had won 5 in a row, all of them at home, predictably, because they are a good home team and they are a terrible road team. And then their first game on the road against Lakers, that's when they lose. But a lot of what the homestand was them.
Not easy teams though.
Well, they were also getting behind really early, and then it was Klay kind of just saving them in a few of those games, and it made me wonder. Now that Steph is back, does Steph put a little bit of a water on the flame on Klay? Because Klay started off really well yesterday in first quarter, then they got behind so badly, and then in the fourth quarter, it was Steph pretty much taking every shot. So I kind of wonder, how are they going to balance that? Because Klay was the Steph on that homestand. He was playing Steph Curry in those games to bring the Warriors back.
I feel like, yeah, it's felt like that a lot with Klay this year. Him and Steph just haven't completely synced up this year. What was Klay 8 of 18? I think I actually just checked this before we started. So I think he was 8 of 18 yesterday. Steph was 8 of 20. I think you bet on the chemistry and that they've played together for 10 years that they're going to figure it out. But that's true. Klay, the whole argument with Klay going down in that Toronto series was damn, he was literally just starting to try out some new stuff and really look like he was about to hit his peak. And then he goes down for 2 years and now he's coming back and he's doing things he's never done in his career before. So I don't know if there's something he unlocked there, but yeah, he's looking like a guy. And for a top 5 player in the league to come back and take your reps, most people understand, but Klay's got this unwavering confidence where I'm sure he still wants his. So
yeah, they're gonna have to figure out, and maybe it's Klay kind of having some of those non-Steph minutes.
Yeah,
I'm sure they'll figure that out.
They should honestly just do some of the lineups without Steph for second units, Klay, Dre, and Poole in the second unit with Kuminga and.
Well, I sent you and our buddy Ben a plus minus, and it's a small sample size, but in the 128 minutes that Kuminga has been on the court with Draymond, Jordan Poole, and Dante DiVincenzo, those 4 together have had a plus 18 net rating, plus 19, almost plus 19 net rating. So that kind of says what you say is that is a successful non-Steph lineup to a small degree. But maybe they need to try it out a little bit more. So when you go, Steph is there's anywhere between 12 and 14 non-Steph minutes. How do we keep the offense up? Well, let's try that thing. Let's see if we can make it so that those guys are playing together. And then maybe it is as the 5th guy. Maybe it is Klay in that lineup or whatever. But that is going to be very vital because Steph is so dominant when he's back on the court. Because you saw, right? You saw the adjustments that the other guys took. DiVincenzo did not shoot well. Kuminga and Steph, for whatever reason, do not play well together. So there is adjustments. And what I hope is that these last 17 games, Kurt is really putting the playoff lineups out there so these guys get the reps with those lineups, because they don't have that much room for error. Let's say in these 17 games where they got 10 road games and 7 home games, best case scenario, let's say they go 9-8. Like that's hard for what they usually do, right? Based on what they've done this year. Let's say they go 9-8. And maybe they do sneak out that number 5 spot. I think that if you go 9-8 and you finish where you are now, you are fighting for 5-6. You are not in the 7, 8, 9, 10 range. You are fighting for 5-6. So let's say they even get there, then you are in a much better spot for the playoffs. But my worry is they're going to work so hard to make this playoffs that, that could be exhausting to get there, right? And then you got to go win series. Right now, they're in like a 17-game playoff with themselves to try and make it. So that is my worry, is that they're just going to exhaust themselves getting to whatever that to stay out of the play-in, because I still think there's some demons from 2021 about how they lost those 2 play-in games to get kicked out at that point. Like you would have thought, right? Like, oh, maybe the LeBron and AD were favored against the Warriors in that game. But then you go Memphis, plucky little Memphis. You're like, man, weren't we supposed to win that game? So I think they're going to try really hard to stay out of that scenario again, though I do think they're probably favored to beat most of those teams in that range in a one-gamer. If you had to play the Lakers in the one game, we talked about that. It'd be tough, but I think they'd do it. I think they'd beat the Jazz, even though the Jazz have their number. The Pelicans also have their number, but unless
the Pelicans haven't seen them, the Warriors were usually, that was the game where they go, all right, Steph, Klay, and Draymond, sit out.
Your guys.
I don't know why they did that against the Pelicans, but it was coming off of back-to-backs. I don't think they've played the Pelicans with their guys.
Clippers are tough. I think the Mavericks. I think they could beat the Mavs. I think they beat the Timberwolves.
But Kyrie against the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean,
he's gonna
get his.
Treats that as his finals.
Yeah, he's gonna get his. He's a good offensive player, but also they will attack him defensively, and I will lick my lips waiting for that. But yeah, they're gonna have their work cut out if it is a one gamer. Clippers, Pelicans play them good. Lakers play them good. Those are 3 tough teams. I think they could beat the other teams, but those are 3 really tough teams in a one gamer. So go for 6, man. Go for 5, 6. Go for it. And
have you looked at the standings?
Yeah, what would be funny? If they somehow get to the 5th slot, and like you said, I also kind of feel this way, that the Grizzlies could possibly fall to 4. Can you imagine round 1 Warriors Grizzly?
That's what everyone probably wants. I'm sure everyone who has a stake in this from the NBA wants either that round 1 or Warriors Suns round 1.
I want the Grizzlies, man. I just want to see Dylan Brooks just falter on the court.
Oh, and GP2 makes his return or something.
GP2, yeah. Dylan Brooks just shooting.
Do we have a GP2 update?
I mean, they said early April, right? Like that was the.
Oh wow, really?
Late March, early April. I thought that was like originally what they said. Maybe it was 3rd week in March. I don't remember, but it didn't sound like it was going to be that much before the playoffs.
Oh my God, that's crazy. But I mean, if you look at the standings, do I have it pulled up right here?
I have it. I have it up.
I'll have it on my phone too.
I can share it on the.
But my point is, like, why can't we lean on the side of optimism and say, not necessarily that they'll end up in the 3 seed, but those are like 2 games away. Aren't they like 2 or 3 games back from the 3 seed?
Okay, so then that's the other question, which is we have not seen this all year long. I don't know what their longest winning streak is. Maybe it was this 5-gamer that they just had. But how many games can they put together, do you think?
Okay,
they haven't, right? They haven't put together any sort of winning streak whatsoever. So in one sense, you could say maybe they're due for a run. But in the other sense, you could say, well, we kind of know what they are, and they have not had any sort of consistency runs in them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that's been my argument every single podcast. On our last podcast we did, which was before this 5-game win streak, we were like talking about it and like how we always, feel good about this with the Warriors when they win, but when you look at the score, they only win by like 2. So it's like maybe we shouldn't have felt so good about that stretch of wins they got, saying like early January. And then you were saying like, guess what? They're just going to end up going in these next 6 games, 500.
then they went 5-1.
But not necessarily that they won convincingly, but they win by a good point margin and against a good amount of these teams. Like they killed the Clippers, even though it looks like they win by like 20 against the Clippers.
They beat the Rockets. They beat the Rockets by 15. They beat the Timberwolves by 5. They beat the Blazers by 18. They were losing in the third quarter in that game, I think. Though.
Yeah. No, the Trailblazers one was a crazy comeback.
They beat the Clippers by 24? And then they beat the Pelicans by 9.
So my point is that previously when they went on these type of win streaks, specifically during that when we went to the Detroit game, I think they were on like a little run there. I got confident because I saw the win. And I didn't necessarily look at the box score. Like I watched the games. I looked at the box score, of course, but I didn't necessarily look at the idea that, okay, they only won by like 2. It was like 1 possession away from them losing that game. But this time around in this win streak, I mean, they're winning by like a good amount. So
aren't you worried about the slow starts?
Yes, I am. Yeah, they, like you said, Klay's saving them. They're not going to be able to get saved every time. But I mean, I think you might have also said it, but how important these games are to mesh together as a unit, because you look on paper and it's like, oh, what if we're on a 5-game win streak, and what if we add a top 5 player in the league? Like we should win the rest of our games and go undefeated, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just what computes in my head. So I think they just got to figure some stuff out. And I mean, they have the pieces. You look at like the roster and you look at like obviously no Wiggins, but when Wiggins comes back, that starting 5 is the best in the NBA by net rating, won the finals last year. That starting 5, their 6th man won the finals last year and still the 6th man. Jonathan Kuminga, I think, has proven like, I mean, what have you thought of Kuminga these past couple games? I know the Lakers one was tough, but everything before that, I feel like it's just so like he brings something that, we haven't seen in a while for these Warriors teams. And I think it's so essential.
Crazy energy.
It's
an energy. It's a hype. He plays with charisma, right? And for such a Draymond plays with charisma, but for such a kind of a veteran laden team, right? The most of their best players are the vets, and he brings like that young energy, and it's when they're playing great, like you see Klay wants to celebrate with this guy. So I think he's been playing good, but he does have his detraction, which is
offensively
can't shoot. And sometimes if there is any sort of traffic in the lane, he's more than likely going to have the ball stolen by a guard. Like they just immediately just like it's a magnet. They just go after the ball when he's got it anywhere near the lane. So
that's fair. But I mean, also you talk about Dante DiVincenzo. When's the last time they had a guy like that who could do some of the stuff he does at the guard position? Like, I feel like even in some of their better teams, they haven't had that guy. And yet, they're the 5th seed. But I look at this roster and I'm like, Dante DiVincenzo being your 7th man, what was the last 7th man to be able to do that? Then we're going back to like the Livingston and Iguodala days, right? So I just think that you look at, their playoff rotation, and I feel like that's why people have, some of the talking heads and some of the trusted analysts have not given up on this team. Because when you talk about a playoff rotation and when you talk about who are your best 8 guys, you probably put the Warriors up there with some of the best teams. When we're talking like top 3, like you put them up there with the Celtics, you put them up there with the Bucks, you put them up there with Phoenix, Denver. So it's just,
that's why nobody's given up on them.
Exactly. And it's annoying.
I feel like we explain their flaws more so than the national media because we watch them from day to day. But the national media is looking at the big picture going like, okay, my favorite team is X, and who am I most scared of? Well, it's the Warriors, so we can't give up on those guys.
Yeah.
All right, let's just quickly look ahead for this week. Very, very heavy road schedule upcoming. Out of like their next 9 games, it's either 8 or 9 games. I think only 2 of them are at home. And like we said, terrible road team. The Thunder on Tuesday. Good game for Steph to get his feet wet again. What's
Don't
up with
count him out.
What's
Don't
up with
count him out.
Shea though?
He's back.
Okay, so he's just randomly sitting games, or was he hurt? Like, what's
I don't
the
know
deal
if they're
with that?
doing their OKC Thunder thing again. I thought he was hurt. I think he just made his return like last game. That at least I actually didn't watch, but he posted something on Instagram like back like I never left or something like that.
Yeah.
So I just assumed he's back. I wouldn't completely call them easy, but we have.
No, I don't think they're easy because they're very talented, but I just wonder how badly they want to win these games versus how badly the Warriors want to win these games.
True.
Grizzlies, we'll see what's up with Ja.
I mean, they're better without him, right?
Yeah, that's tough, man. What they're dealing with him, and I know Bane's been hurt a lot this year. I really like him. Brooks is just kind of a. I know the hometown fans love Brooks, so that's all that rivalry. That's going to be a very intense, Thursday night regular season game, because what did Dylan Brooks say about Draymond? Didn't he have a comment about Draymond recently?
Yeah, he just like hates him.
Yeah, so there's something there. And then Saturday, which is the home game, and then you go up, and then we get the the best team in the East coming.
They split the Bucks games last year when it felt like they shouldn't have.
They did. Giannis is just so hard for them to handle.
Oh my god, yeah.
And then Monday, KD comes in. KD comes back. Is this his first game with a crowd in the Bay Area?
In Chase Center, yes.
So that'll be something, man. That's going to be insane.
Don't get excited. Something always happens, and KD doesn't come back to Chase.
You should try and sneak in and see if you can find a cheap ticket for that game.
Yeah, like 1 minute before the game.
Yeah,
try to snipe one.
You should,
maybe.
But yeah. So they're gonna have their work cut out for them, and as we've said, sort of every week, it's like these games will sort of further define them. And that's what a season is all about. That's why 82 games is the numbers, because each game as you get closer, you're like, oh, this defines them. And to go 2-2, I think here in these next 4
would be good.
I think would be good. To go 3-1 would be okay. These guys are in a different mode of play than we even realize. So
to lose to the Oklahoma City Thunder, non-nationally televised game, and also lose to the jawless Memphis Grizzlies, but beat the fully stacked Bucks and Phoenix Suns would be so Warriors-like.
It would be. It very much would be. That would be a very good description of kind of how they played this season.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to be done here. Like I said, Brad and I will be back on Wednesday to talk Giants as the season is getting nearer and nearer. And I think Rod and I are going to be back on Sunday with We Want Winners. I had a BSPN News up yesterday morning, for those listening on the podcast. And I may get one up near the end of the week, depending on what happens with some of these games, especially depending on that Memphis game, because I think that's going to be kind of a one that you're going to want to pay attention to, even if you're not a big fan of regular season basketball. There's going to be some stuff going on in that game. All right, that's it from here. We'll be back next week for Bri.
Yeah, you always ask me what's going on.
Oh, for the BAM? Yeah. Oh, forgot.
Yeah. I did a podcast last week with Cameron Salerno. He's credentialed through the Associated Press for the Sacramento Kings, so we talked all things Kings. I'm trying to do this thing on the BAM where I try to talk with more like of the younger professionals, like around my age, who are connected in the league. So I've been, reaching out to people for that. We've got some scheduled. We've also got Lawrence Murray of The Athletic, coming on Thursday. He covers the Clippers, so we'll have him on Thursday. So that's what's going on.
That works. Check it out. You could see at the BAM Pods on Twitter and at the BAM Pod on Instagram. You just still can't figure that out. You can't get the same.
I don't want to pay someone. I don't want to pay him for the handle.
All right. Okay. Now we're done. For Bri, I'm Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.